My first impression of Steven, my match, was delightful. He was everything that the matchmaker had told me. He was a wonderful conversationalist, great company, very charismatic, and just everything I was looking for.
Brent and I, on our first date, we absolutely hit it off. We had dinner, and Brent is a foodie just like I am as well. We met at the restaurant. We actually met at the hostess at the entrance, and immediately I knew that was Brent. We had dinner. Brent matched the appetizers with the entrees, and we just could not stop talking. The thing I remember the most is that we sat down to a delightful dinner with a fabulous human being, and just couldn't stop talking. We had 10,000 different tangents on what we were talking about. Sidebar, sidebar, sidebar. I remember that the conversation with Brent just came so easily and so connected from the first date.
My first date with Steven was wonderful. We met right in the very front of the restaurant at the Beverly Hilton, and as soon as we sat down, we had an instant chemistry. I remember we ordered a little bit of appetizer to share with each other and a glass of wine, and then we just started talking about everything and nothing. We talked about shared passions, which was amazing. We both love music, and we had so many tangents going on that today we still come back and talk about each little thing that we're still learning about each other.
I wasn't necessarily nervous meeting Brent before, and having not seen a picture of him. I've been with Tawkify services on several dates, and actually found it very refreshing. I found all too often in the dating apps is that there was the notion of physicality over any other types of connection. With Tawkify and a matchmaking service, I found that obviously the physicality and physical connection was very important. However, not having the opportunity to see a photo of Brent before our first date was very, very refreshing. Felt more like a blind date that a friend had set us up on, who knew us and knew us well. My first date with Brent, not having seen a photo with him, really did feel like a blind date, and connected in many, many different ways.
I was not nervous meeting Steven before seeing a photo. The matchmaker gave us a fantastic description of what Steven looked like, what he enjoyed doing. They might have even oversold him a little bit. I was, nervous wasn't the right word, but my expectations were different from when I met him, which was fantastic because I thought I was a little out of my league. And come to find out he's a wonderful, down-to-earth human being, described perfectly, and a gorgeous, gorgeous man.
In my Tawkify journey, I was towards the end when I met Brent. I'd originally bought a package and had been on a few other dates. And Brent was my last within the package I had purchased, and of course the best for last. And we immediately came to a connection as we saw each other, and I was very happy that I had the opportunity to date others and meet others to know what I wanted in my relationship with Brent. I don't know exactly when Brent and I became official. I don't know that we have a date. However, I knew from the moment that we met that he was a human that I wanted to get to know and build a relationship with. I would say it's about 3 or 4 months after we started calling each other boyfriend, and then a few months after that, calling each other partner, and everything has been fantastic since then.
I was very early on in my Tawkify journey before dating Steven. I had actually come to Tawkify after being with several other matchmaking services. They weren't giving me the same things that Tawkify did give me. A date that the matchmaker set up for us, that hasn't been an experience in the past, which I really appreciated. And I wanted a different experience than most services were offering. So Tawkify gave me the right service. It was just wonderful that he turned out to be my first date on Tawkify. I don't remember when we made a relationship official. There are moments throughout our relationship solidified more and more, and I believe 3 months in, we were sitting down talking about deal breakers and our passions again, and just really solidifying, okay, we are the right people for each other. We want to keep moving this forward, and that was really important to do all of that.
Interestingly, I knew I was in love with Brent when a friend called it out that anytime that I walked into the room, that my my face lights up when I see Brent. I think that the people around me, the folks that I call my support group, my chosen family, knew that I was in love with Brent long before I did. And hearing them see how I react and I light up when Brent walks into the room, it became very apparent that I was in love with Brent.
When did I know I was in love? I think it was a little earlier for me than it was for Stephen. I remember a beautifully romantic evening where a song just came on and it touched my heart and my soul, and I had a little tear, cried on his shoulder, and we've been happy ever since.
My experience with Tawkify from start to finish was just absolutely fantastic. My first interaction was with the representative who did a consultation with me to make sure that I was everything that I was needing to be all the expectations were going to be met. I was immediately matched with a matchmaker who walked me through my needs, wants, desires, all those things, top priorities to make sure that my experience with Tawkify was fantastic. From there, I remember waiting anxiously for my first match. It wasn't that long after I did my interview with my matchmaker that I had my first match. I had, like I mentioned, a few other matches within the experience. But again, with each match, with each date, I was able to get to know a little bit more about what I wanted, how I could communicate to my matchmaker with regard to my wants and expectations. Along the journey, my matchmaker and we were able to really solidify on those types of needs and wants, and I'll tell you what, they blew it out of the water every time, whether it was a match or didn't want to see them again or whatever that might be. My matchmaker, they just did a fantastic job in getting to really understand what I'm looking for. And as a result, here we are today with Brent in a beautiful relationship.
My experience with Tawkify has been extremely positive. I really encourage people to use a matchmaking service. For me personally, the journey began with defining my wants and my needs and also my deal breakers, finding what was important for me in a relationship. And a matchmaker held me accountable to all of those things. Each time a new match came and a date did happen, I could say, okay, was X, Y, and Z met? Or do we share these same common interests? I feel that in and of itself is important in a relationship. A matchmaker helps you along that journey.
Yeah, a piece of advice that I would give for anyone considering Tawkify, it's so interesting when I talk with my friends and they see how wonderful Brent and our relationship is. They're always like, well, why'd you go with a matchmaker? And their initial reaction is, that's so expensive. Well, my piece of advice for those who are looking for Tawkify as a matchmaking service, I have to chuckle that, friends, whoever will spend tens of thousands of dollars for a vehicle that gets them from point A to point B. My advice is invest in your relationship, invest in what I would consider one of the most important parts of my life. To invest in things that really have long-term meaningful value.
Piece of advice I would share, someone who wants to do Tawkify, I love that there are two different approaches. You can take a passive or a direct approach. Be your authentic self. Ultimately, what do you want out of a relationship? What makes you happy? That's the best you can do, is be authentic.